I'm thrilled to introduce Jim Bishop, our incredible client in our Transform 6 online coaching program, a business coach, speaker, and the author of the incredible book, The Adventure Within. Jim has spent years helping high achievers break through their limitations and rediscover their true passions and purpose in life. He knows firsthand what it's like to chase success at all costs and then realize that true fulfillment comes from within. His journey has led him to inspire countless others to find a deeper meaning, and today we'll dive into Jim's personal story, explore the concepts from his book, and get actionable advice for anyone feeling like they're stuck in a cycle of achievement without fulfillment. Whether you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or someone looking to unlock the next level of success, this episode is packed with valuable takeaways. Jim, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Martin. Thanks. It's good to be here.
Great to have you here. So for everybody out there, people that don't necessarily know you or may not know you yet, first and foremost, you're a client of ours in the Transform 6 online coaching program, and you have been for quite some time. You have last year come to London to do a photo shoot. You got yourself in an absolutely incredible shape. It's your second time on the podcast because we did one last year, or you are also a business coach. And the reason I wanted to talk to you, Jim, is because I feel like your journey, not only on the fitness side, but your personal development journey has been very interesting. We had a chat recently, and that's really what got me thinking about doing something like this to really dive into not the fitness journey, but the personal journey of yours. You also recently launched a book, and I wanted to talk to you about that as well, and generally how everything has been since the launch and since the idea of the book and all of that. So without further ado, welcome to the show, and tell me what got you to the place where you are today. Let's go with the book first of all, because that's what I'm most interested in.
Okay. How did the book come to be?
How did the book come to be? Yeah.
Yeah. So after having been an executive coach now for the better part of 7 years, I've done coaching in my corporate world. And then when I moved out 5 years ago on my own, I worked one-on-one with clients, and I get calls a lot from other people that want to work with me. And sometimes budget doesn't afford that, or sometimes opportunity isn't right. And I always felt bad about telling them no, or not being able to serve them, right? Or not being able to help them. And sometimes my calendar was just too full. And so what I was able to do was kind of step back and say, what are some of those key moments in people's lives that make a difference? And what has been my journey, and how does that mirror some of the clients that I also see? And I have always thought it would be fun to write that into a book. But candidly, as someone who always has a task list that's more than I ever can get done, I hate the type of books that just are 16 steps to a path of freedom, or 2 more things that you need to do or add to your plate. So I read those books and I put them on my shelf, and I think someday when I get enough time, I'll go back and look at them. And so I didn't want to put my thoughts into a how-to book, if you will. And I always connect better personally myself with story. So I thought, let's just write stories. Let's write stories about real life people who are trying to live life for the first time themselves, who've gotten themselves into a log jam of success, and they're not sure how to get out of it, because now what I got is what's trapping me inside. And I either feel like I need to chuck it all and start over, or I need to figure out a different way to do things. And they are caught in this either or quandary. So the book came to be because there are real life people out there stuck, and they're not living into their fullest potential. And I still felt a calling or a need to help them. And so the best way to get that into their hands was put it into story format in a book that they could read over a couple cups of coffee, and give them an allegory of what might be like and how they can resonate with real people in real life situations and what they need to do about it. So that's that.
And so
we entitled it The Journey Within.
That's super interesting.
Sorry.
Do you feel that many people sort of associate leadership with strength and control based on your experience with clients, and obviously your experience in the corporate world as well?
Yeah, I think there are many different ways that people will frame themselves and give themselves an identity around what leadership looks like. And, The Adventure Within is all inviting them to look at what's inside of them rather than what's outside of them. Because for so long, most likely, what they've done is they've looked for definitions of what strong leaders look like around them, and they've tried to mimic that to try to fit in. And that sometimes has quashed the authenticity of what's inside and how do I authentically want to lead. So, yes, there you'll see there's a character in the book that probably over equates strength and being in control with what a good leader looks like. There's also a character in the book that equates just being calm and avoiding conflict and helping people get what they need and being more of a quote unquote people pleaser as a definition of what strong leadership looks like. And he's been very successful doing that. And it's giving him a strong identity as a good team leader and a good people person and a good relator in business. Right. So you'll see that all of us have some sort of proclivity of how we've absorbed the world around us and given us a definition of what safety and meaning looks like for us. And that's how we tend to mimic to find our place and position in the world. So at some point when what's working for you doesn't work for you anymore, then that's the invitation to take the adventure within. So,
um, when you were on the program, or you're still on the program, but when you were in the fat loss phase, leading to the photo shoot, when we met in London, I remember very clearly that you said that moment kind of really changed something in you, and then you discovered something that kind of made you realize certain things. What was it?
yeah, it's a good question. I think it even goes further back if I were to look at the total picture, but let's just start photo shoot, right? So lots of effort and energy going into the 6 months leading up to that photo shoot. And I didn't enter the program just to look better in pictures, but it wasn't also a bad motive to keep me focused on what I needed to do. Um, and so getting there, especially the last 2 weeks prior to it, there was a lot of what I would call self-sacrifice and discipline into that. And candidly, I think that's what I really was looking for when I wanted to join coaching with you was I felt like I was a little bit out of control myself. I felt like looking in the mirror, I could see the person looking back at me was not exhibiting the discipline in their life that they needed to be exhibiting. And it was just a reflection on the outside, what was going on in the inside. So I entered coaching with a definition of let's change the outside and prove to myself I can do something hard and this discipline will lead to something. We got through the photo shoot. You and Jason were like, man, this is awesome. You look great, and all the affirmation and praise. And I guess the piece of me that I would label as broken or what I always seen as damaged was that little boy inside that just wanted that sort of male to male affirmation, someone to say you're big enough and strong enough and you have a place in this world. And when I heard you and Jason doing that, it warmed a part of me that I didn't know that existed, but I also felt dearly like this is the salve for the wound that I've been feeling. And in that moment, I felt such tremendous pride, recognition. I felt seen, I felt heard, I felt validated. And that all was good. And I think it was what happened in the days and the weeks after that that probably led to further insight was because that feeling started to wear off and I started to question, well, what's next? And though my discipline was still there, I wasn't having to manage it nearly as tightly as I was if we were, cutting carbs before the photo shoot. And so I could go back to maybe a little bit more around what does a normal lifestyle look like with a renewed mindset around health and fitness and keeping my physique, but not necessarily managing it to the nth degree. So I was relaxing in that regard. And I felt like if I'm relaxing in that regard, then I'm going to miss some of this affirmation that I had received. But I couldn't just keep on this treadmill of looking good to earn someone's adoration. I mean, I don't go around without a shirt off most of the day. And so no one is going to know what I physically look like. But what they're going to know is how do I show up? And I was starting to feel like I was losing some of that discipline that I had gained through the program, but in the rest of my life. And it led to some unfortunate situations in relationships, particularly in my household with my wife. I just wasn't the person that I wanted to be, and I had to continue to take the adventure within. I had to keep stepping one layer deeper. So,
I really love this because that links so well to what I always say, really understanding your why. Why do you want to enter the journey to develop your physique, improve your health, etc. Essentially, what we do. But the beauty of this whole journey, because one could argue that, okay, if, maybe if you knew that it's going to get you to the place where you think or are happy for a short period of time and then it wears off, one could argue that why start in the first place? But I think there is a lot more to it. You essentially found or started to look for the missing pieces, which is exactly what you just said. So take me on that journey afterwards. You, like you said, you start experiencing sort of challenging relationship situations, etc. What is that caused by, and how do you start to go about trying to sort it out?
Yeah. Okay. What was it like, and what caused it, and where did I go to sort it out? These are tender and dear places, but I think for the sake of listeners, I think it resonates, and we'll just go there. Um, as I alluded to, like a lot of my transformative journey, even before Transform Six, leaving corporate America, starting a business. I mean, leaving corporate America didn't come without some pain. It came because my job was downsized a couple of times. I tried to find a way to fit in and play it safe. That didn't work. I took another position with another company, found that that position was gonna get terminated, and I was not going to be needed. And so there's all this identity shifting that was going on, and it happened to be in the middle of the pandemic too. So there's some of that wrestling and concern. And so I feel like I'm getting my life back on track, getting some discipline in it, enter Transform Six, start doing, seeing things shift in my life in a positive direction. The business starts growing, life starts getting better. And all the while I'm learning again how to take up space in the world physically as I get bigger and bigger. Um, and now after the photo shoot, it felt like things started to come crashing down a little bit, just because I didn't have a sense of purpose again in this journey. And candidly, it's a lot easier to sit on the couch and eat cookies than it is to try and manage your macros every day, right? And Jason on the other side of the app could see this happening. He knew that there was some, I wasn't logging everything all the time, and he didn't know what to do. And I know I was frustrating him in that. But there was something inside of me that just was trying to resolve itself. Like what is wrong and what needs to be fixed. And as most men do, I generally tend to pull myself out of relationship because I don't want someone seeing me hurt like that. I don't want to let the inside be known. Told you a little bit about the inner boy that just wanted to be heard and loved and know that he has a place in the world and affirmed. There was that wound, and there was this wrestling of something needed to be fixed, and I'm pulling myself out of relationship. And you take those three things and put them together, and there can be some unhealthy behaviors that I got into. I mean, internet, looking at stuff, getting on porn sites, just trying to be fulfilled as a person and understanding what that meant for me, knowing in the moment that that was probably not helpful and not right, aligned with the values that I hold. But I didn't want anyone to know that I was medicating a wound that was inside a little bit. So eventually that brings relationship issues in between me and my spouse, obviously. Not knowing, I didn't come clean. She didn't know anything, but she knew there was tension. She knew I was wrestling with something. And then discovery happens and everything gets exposed. And we go from there into a journey of healing between us to really explore what was the deeper adventure within. What is the deeper wound that is trying to be healed? And how do we go about that in a healthy way between the two of us? And how does that manifest itself into taking up more space in the world, right? And so what I keep learning in this journey, no matter if it's from the time that I heard someone say your job is no longer needed to the time that I heard you and Jason say, well done, man, you look jacked, or whether it's the time that I heard my wife say, yeah, I can't believe this and you're hurting me. It's those moments that I have to also step inside and go, yes, I have to take full accountability for the ways that I've chosen to react to the world. And now it's time for me to lead in the world. And there's a difference between reacting and actual leading. It's stepping into that full power and that full authority and understanding fully what is it that you were created to do and what's keeping you from it. I can clearly say that some of the things that I had grown up with, if I look backwards in time, were just patterns of ways that I learned it wasn't safe to trust other people, or it wasn't safe to express emotion. It wasn't safe to let people know what was going on the inside. And that led itself into a lot of things over time, right? Even lack of discipline leading to a photo shoot, or getting involved with what I would call maladaptive behaviors that are not helping anything in my life other than just giving me a sense of peace in the midst of something that felt very unstirring. Um, and so the period of time after the photo shoot until now, and the reason that I kind of continued in the program is because I have to prove to myself again, it's not just about doing the hard lifting. It's not just about the weights. It's about, or the discipline around diet. It's about in the moment choosing what is aligned with the needs and the values that I hold. And I had separated those things out for a period of time. I had needs and I had values, and the further they got separated, the more I felt out of integrity with myself, and then my tolerations went way up, my battery went way down, and I started spinning all over again. And so um, I think this is the story, and I mirror that in the book with one of the characters as we walk through what are needs and values and how to keep them aligned. But I think this is a story for a lot of men, is that we like to be independent. We don't like to let other people know that we need help. And so there's a hesitance and a reticence to pull ourselves out of relationship, and even to sometimes not even acknowledge our own needs. Basic things like the need for belonging, the need for affirmation, the need to be loved. They're human basic needs. But when we don't pay attention to those and we have these aspirational values, sometimes what happens is we live outside of the values because the needs scream as loud as hunger, and it needs to be fed. And if it causes sometimes individuals to step outside of their value set. Uh, and it's unfortunate the damage that it causes. And I walked the path, so I can understand now more clearly how it causes damage. And I live in that space every day of just taking the next best step that keep those two things aligned with the discipline that I truly need inside. And then it's mirroring itself more on the outside as well. So.
Well, that's really great and really interesting, because the one thing that straight comes into my mind, or the question is, how does one identify that they are in a pretty kind of low place in their life? And so from what you said, I assume it comes down to realizing what your values are and aligning everything with those values, and moving from there. But if I were to visualize, you kind of get yourself in that proverbial hole. And what's the moment that you realize, okay, if I continue like that, it's going to end up badly and I need to do something about it? Is it the conversation that you have with your spouse? Is it looking in the mirror one day and going like, hey man, what are you doing? You need to do better. Is it your clients who you work with? And what got you out of that place?
Yeah. Um, Again, my journey is my client's journey in many cases. And so I can speak both from what I have lived and experienced as well as some collective around me. But the path of transformation, truly, I have yet to see that it has started because someone just has optimism about what could be. I think the path of transformation almost always starts with some degree of pain. It could be getting laid off from your job, and that shakes loose some identity. It could be the loss of a dear relationship, maybe a divorce or a separation of sorts. It could be the death of somebody who really meant a lot to you, or was that affirming person for you, or where you did find safety. But any of those things that tend to shake loose the identity that we've created for ourselves, or the story and narrative that we put around us to find safety, I think is the place where it starts. Most people don't acknowledge the pain. At least the people that I'm around. Most people will, especially men, we've been told to rub some dirt on it or just man up. So we don't acknowledge that we're actually in pain, and we just keep going about working harder and harder at the same thing, trying to get different results. And I did that. I mean, I did that for a very long time in my corporate world. I tried to do more of the things that made people happy, or more of the things that my bosses would affirm. And that would get me, I would hope that would get me a greater spot in the totem pole. It didn't. It got me more anxiety and more nervousness, right? It got me more unquenchable hunger in my gut that I didn't know how to solve. It got me more of those, what I would call negative emotions. And again, most people aren't paying attention to what their emotional state is in the middle of this. But the place that most people will come to a transformative journey of some sort when they're ready to take the adventure within or sign up for Transform 6 is when they realize I just can't keep going the way that I'm going. Or, oh my God, what if the world finds out? Right? What if other people find out who I really am? And I think this is maybe the existential question that burdens a lot of guys in their solitude and in their quiet moments is, am I really the person that everybody thinks I am? I mean, sure, I can go throughout the day faking it. I can go throughout the day being strong and formidable, or I can go throughout the day being nice and congenial and avoiding discomfort for other people. And all the while, I'm losing myself on the inside. And I know that if the real me comes out, the world may not like it. Or if I show the real me to the people around me, will they still love me or care about me? And so it's in the hiding and the shame place that I think most people come to this realization. And I just liken it to two pieces of magnets. When you put them together in the opposite direction, they just keep repelling one another, and you can push harder and harder and harder to try to get them together, but they'll never stick. And when you're doing that all day long in your needs and values, or the inside and the outside, or the integrity, I call it, if that's not matching, what's happening is you're just draining the energy reserves. And when you drain the energy reserves, people are like, I just don't got the energy. It's not worth the time or the effort for me to enter this hard conversation. Or I don't love my job, but I'm just stuck doing it because I can't figure out what else to do. There's no energy left at the end of the day. I can't imagine going through more resumes or more interviews, or I can't imagine applying for anything else right now. Or they're sitting on their couch and they're just numbing out watching mindless television sometimes, or they're scrolling Instagram all day long, looking at internet models or things that they really, it's not hurting anyone else. It's just hurting themselves. And the more it hurts themselves, the more they're willing to drink their own poison, but not come public with it. And the energy level just keeps draining and draining all day long until they're like, I got nothing left. And so I see a lot of my clients scratching for that itch in many different ways. I'm going to work harder in the office, and I'm going to do more of the things that more people will tell me I'm good at. But they get just as drained at that because they're like, I can't do more. I can't work more hours. I see them reaching for substances, whether it be alcohol or drugs or any other adaptive things that could help them, just try to calm the energy down. It may not even be illegal drugs. Sometimes they're going to their doctor and asking, I need a prescription for something because I just don't know what's happening and I can't calm myself in the world. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that it may not be the first step. It may just be one of the steps in the journey. I see them reaching a lot of times for when we hurt the deepest in our life and we're feeling wounded. A lot of times we reach for two-dimensional images of real relationships instead of three-dimensional images of real people. And I see people getting into all kinds of internet addictions all day long. And I often find in my male clients, when we really get into it, that their biggest challenge happens to be like they don't want anyone to know what they're doing when they're not actually working, because most of the time they're not actually working. They're probably doing something else on the computer and getting into bad behaviors, or what I would call bad behaviors. And it's so common, but it's so commonly not talked about that you feel like you're the only one when you're in it. When you actually start talking about it, you realize you're not the only one, and that there are other opportunities for you to realize how to be in relationship with the people. You just have to learn that. That's a skill that most of us didn't develop early in life. So that's a long answer to your story, but I think how people notice is because the energy level finally gets to the bottom and you say, I'm at rock bottom and I can't go lower.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was thinking when you were giving this answer, because it seems to me like one reaches that point where you just cannot go any further. You hit, like you said, the rock bottom, and that's the point where you have to make a decision, right? And usually people turn and try to sort things out. But it's interesting because and I see so many similarities with our clients and what we do and what you described with your clients. Now, I always feel that there are two types of people. There are people who acknowledge certain things fairly early on, and they don't want to get to a point where it's going to be too late, or the pain is going to be too late, or they hit that sort of proverbial rock bottom. And there are people who unfortunately have to hit that rock bottom because there's just no other way that they will have anything in them to sort of turn around and go the opposite direction. So it takes me to you, actually. Before you joined our program, you obviously identified that fitness or health and fitness was the part that was missing. You've had everything else pretty much sorted in your life. Happy relationship, family, kids, etc. You've stepped out of the corporate world. You started your own business. You aligned your values, it seems, and you were kind of in a happy place. And then we come across each other. You start the fitness journey. So clearly you identified this is what I need in order to get to the next level. Now, interestingly, you do that and then you open another can of worms.
Yes.
Talk to me about your life before the Transform 6. And then obviously we know the rest. But did you feel like you had your life sorted prior to starting the program with us?
That's a yes or no question. And I'm going to live in the shade of gray. I had convinced myself that I had things back in control. And that's how I'll answer that. Like, did I have it sorted? I don't know that any one person on the face of the earth actually has their life completely sorted out, right? And I think that's the fallacy that we live by, that everyone else is fixed and has life all figured out. And then here I am and I'm struggling and I must not be like everyone else. So we purposely kind of other ourselves from the normative group. But the more you journey with people and you get to know their real story in life, there is not a single person, no matter how old they are, that has life figured out. I mean, even if you look at your parents or other authority figures that are still living life, they're still just doing it for the very first time, right? They're still being a parent of you at this age, whatever age you are, for the very first time. They're still figuring it out. So let me step back into that story, because I have to frame it up with there's two kind of addictions, I think. there's addictions that we find that are in the boardroom, and there are addictions that we find that belong in Las Vegas, right? And either place, we've created a place where those addictions are safe. And so I use that example because if you are aggressive at managing projects and you can get things done and you show a tremendous amount of discipline or initiative, these are what I would call executive behaviors that get rewarded in the world, right? And they're just as likely to become an addiction for people as drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever else you might find, right? And now in the boardroom, it's perfectly acceptable to do to one side. And on the other side, it's perfectly acceptable to go to Las Vegas or Amsterdam or wherever you want to. And you'll find a community of people who says this is okay too. And our desire is to find belonging in either of those places. And when we put the wrong thing in front and we say, my need is to find belonging, and I'm doing that outside of my values, I can find an addiction in either place. I can become as addicted to my answering emails and getting things done in the office, but it gets me praise and recognition in a place in the hierarchy, maybe more salary, maybe more reputation, maybe a bigger house, maybe a bigger boat, whatever it is that we're chasing, but it's still an addiction. On this side over here, it's probably one that you're going to hide a little bit. You don't want people to know that you're as addicted to some of those things, but it's also as numbing as the pain. Now, how do they work together? I think they work together because on the executive side of it, you get addicted to what's going on in work, and it just makes the gears grind a little bit more. Every day you come in, you're like, I don't want to be doing what I'm doing, but I can't leave because I have a bigger paycheck than I did last week. And if I give this up, everyone around me will think it's wrong. Everyone around me will think I'm a failure. Or if I take a job for less pay or less responsibility, everyone around me is going to think that I gave up. No one wants to feel that way. So we grind and grind and grind, and that causes friction, which causes heat. When heat gets uncontrolled, what happens is it needs to be calmed down. So we come over to firefighting behaviors that are over here on the other side of it, and that helps calm the engine down. that helps us feel like we're back in control of things, or we have this grounded presence, or the endorphins or the serotonin or the dopamine that we've got addicted to now is this calming effect. And it's no different than if we were addicted to a physical substance, right? Because we're the chemically in our bodies, it's still doing the same thing. Over on one side, the more emails we answer, the more dopamine we're getting. On the other side, the more pages that we scroll on Instagram, the more dopamine we're getting. And sometimes, and physical addictions start setting in with substances and other things like this, right? But they're working together. As one heats up, the other has to cool it down. And now they're always in fighting with one another. Now, that's a lot of theory. I would say, to your question, prior to photo shoot, I thought I had it in control. I knew that there were some of these behaviors over here that I wasn't real pleased with, but no one knew, and it wasn't hurting anyone. And I really didn't, it wasn't out of control in my life. I had learned how to manage it. And the more that I was stepping into what I would call my purpose, the more I felt like life was aligning, and my executive functioning that I had gained for a long time in corporate America, people patting me on the back for doing all these wonderful things, the more I now had autonomy to do it in the way that I wanted to do it. So I felt really, really good about how life was going and where I was aligned with. And I could see such optimism. But on the inside, I still had this kind of inferiority complex, I might say, or I had this feeling like I didn't fit in the world, or that I was a fraud, or that someone would eventually find out. And the higher one side grew, the more tension was between who I saw myself as and what I was experiencing. And I wanted to like collapse the tide, if you will. I wanted to right the ship. And the fear got so great that it needed to be calmed down. But I would now look at it and say, what I was doing when I stepped out of corporate America is I was doing the exact same thing that I knew how to do in corporate America. I just did it with a more aligned purpose behind it. But it was still an addiction. It was still, I was addicted to achieving more, accomplishing more, getting more done, because at the end of the day, what I was really trying to find was meaning and purpose and belonging. And that led to some unfortunate situations on the other side of the equation. So after the photo shoot, then it's almost like this is a defining point, like before photo shoot and after photo shoot. After photo shoot, now what I had to take full accountability for is I have to manage what I would call this addiction. I have to manage my addiction to my management or executive functioning behaviors, and I have to manage this addiction to these firefighting behaviors that help numb. And the way that I can do that is be more grounded in myself and understanding my emotional state. When am I feeling this tension? When am I feeling like it's getting too hot and it needs to cool down? And those two things I can no longer keep in my own head. I have to journey with other people in this and let them know, which honestly means the person that I married needs to know it more than anyone. She's the one that is there for me, and I was afraid to share it with her in the past. I was trying to provide and protect and do all the right things that a husband does. And at the same time, on the other side, then I was just calming down the engine because it was getting too hot. And now I need to live in authenticity with her to let her know, like, yeah, this isn't working for me anymore. And I need to have my boundaries right. I need to have some of those things that keep me whole and present in my life more. Fitness is one of those. Nutrition has been one of those. But I put it in an unhealthy balance for a little bit because I was just trying to achieve something. I wasn't necessarily trying to be something, if that makes sense. So
This is fantastic. It makes a lot of sense. It seems to me like the solution really is for everybody understanding what their values are and establishing those, and really truly understanding what their values are, and then trying to live according to those values, because that seems the only way. Because if you don't, you kind of almost get yourself into one-way streets where you think you're doing the right thing, but you get there and you almost feel like, what do I do next? Similarly to your photo shoot experience. I love that. But also you mentioned you found out that fitness, health, nutrition clearly is very highly on the hierarchy of your values. And so when you said you needed to create some boundaries, are you talking about this new you, let's call it, after the transformation? You had to make everything that you've worked on throughout the program a part of your life and sustain it, and you had to find the balance, and you had to include your wife and family into it. Is that what you are talking about? And are those partly the conversations that you had to have?
Um, yes, I think so. Let me step back though, because I think values is a part of it. And I think starting there isn't a bad place. But values are aspirational, right? Like I have yet to meet a human being that says, I don't want to be truthful, right? Like you just use that one as an example. But then if I also ask them the question, when is the last time you lied? It's a couple of hours ago, or at most maybe a day, right? We're constantly lying to one another because something else is driving the engine. Values help give us a sense of direction. Who am I and where do I aspire to be or become? But what really drives the engine is our need. And that's the piece that most people haven't identified with, right? And if as an example, I tell a lie to my boss that my project is going well and it's on track, but it's really not. I've just lied and lived outside of my value. But why? Because I had a need to belong or a fear that they were going to hire me or I wouldn't be valuable either way. But the need to connect and belong as a human is so innate that we'll step outside of that value. So for me, it's much more about stepping back into what the need is. Um, Fitness and health, they're not just a value to me. They're more of a discipline that helps me protect my values, if you will. Um, I mean, you and Jason have often referred to it as, gym time is therapy time. And candidly, it's yes, I go to a therapist and I sit and talk to them about deeper things, but I also work some of that out while I'm at the gym. And while I'm there, and I generally listen to classical music or something like that while I'm playing because my brain can rest and I can open up new paths of creativity. Those are the moments in time that I know I have to put boundaries around because it helps me stay in integrity with my values. It's not that fitness is a value, it's that connection is a value. And if I'm going to be truly connected to other people, I'm going to have to tell the truth. And if I'm going to be truly connected with other people, I'm going to have to say some things sometimes that is my truth, not their truth, which means we might be in conflict with one another. But that's true connection, is that we have this insulation around us that says we can have conflict, but we still love one another. Or I'm a person and you're a person and we're not enmeshed together, right? But it only comes from the deeper value that I have to be connected or to find belonging in the world, to see that someone knows me. And for so many years of my journey, I can think about the time that I was 4 to the time that I turned 40. I tried to hide. I tried to fit in. I tried to react to the world around me to show everybody that I could be likable because I had a need for belonging and I wanted them to like me because that was a false substitute for belonging. And it's hard to say no to things that are a close substitute sometimes. So I did it for a very long time. I just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. But then I really felt like I have all these acquaintances in the world and yeah, people like me, but does anyone actually know me? And if you sit back and think with that question, it was like, well, hell no, nobody knows me because I've not actually told them who I am. Because I fear that if I actually tell them who I am, they won't like me. And that will mean I don't have belonging. But belonging and being liked are two different things. And now in my journey, I'm like, I don't need 1,000 friends. I need 3 or 4 who actually know me and see me for who I am and love me still. And when I have that, it doesn't really matter. Everybody else I'm fine to be in relationship with them, but I am not looking to them to meet my need. So this is the bigger journey for me, is to say it is about value, but all too often I think that's an easy way out because I journey with a lot of guys and they will tell me, oh, family is definitely my value. Definitely one of mine. And I'm like, let's open up your calendar then. And how much time did you spend last week with your family versus how much time did you spend in the boardroom or preparing a PowerPoint presentation, right? And it's not just about the investment of quantity of time. I recognize that. I mean, most of us work more than we're actually physically at home. But what is the emotional space that you held during that period of time? You put a lot more diligence and attention into making sure your PowerPoint presentation was spelled correctly than you did listening to your 6-year-old when they came home and said they had a difficult day. right? You didn't have the emotional space for that nearly like you had the emotional space for your boss to prove to him that you proved to them that you're stronger or bigger or faster than they think you are, right? So if we just look at that and we do an audit of our time, we know that we're living outside of our value. Well, why? Because a greater need to find belonging or autonomy in the things that we're good at is coming at the expense of what we say, oh, yeah, family's definitely my value. Definitely. I'm like, really? Because it doesn't appear to me that way in your story. And when someone actually sees another guy, especially like that, it becomes rather frightening to them because they're like, for the very first time in my life, someone actually saw me. And I think that's what I experienced when you and Jason said, hey, way to go, dude. You did something and it's amazing.
Incredible. Jim, how has your professional life, and I'm particularly talking about, the work that you do with your clients, how has that changed since you have finished, part of our program and then went on to this journey of sort of self-development? Because obviously you have been coaching executives for a long time. Have you noticed a change or step up or level up since then? And if so, how did that present itself?
Yeah, it's a great question. Um, that's what I love about coaching is like I think we all need to be in some sort of coaching relationship. I absolutely 100% believe that. Like I can't be a good coach if I'm not being coached by somebody and I'm not willing to put myself there, whether that's in fitness, whether that's in my finances, or whether that's in my coaching profession. But the reason I love it is because when I'm a neutral observer to someone else's life, and I'm just listening, I don't know their job. I don't necessarily know what the right answer is when they're coming up with a strategic decision in their boardroom or in their business. And it's not my job to, right? They have more subject matter expertise on that than I do. But what I can do is I can spot some of those inner workings that the gears get a little jammed up, or the imposter syndrome is kicking in, or the inner voices of doubt are starting to creep in. And they're like, yeah, dude, if you go live with this, people are going to see everything that you've never done good. Um, and it's the what I call belief bullies and dream demons. They're in there and they're tearing people down all the time. And I can observe that in their life very clearly when I'm neutral. The hard part is I can't do it for myself. I have the inner dialogue myself. I have the fear, the doubt, the shame, the guilt, all of the things that keep us into this spiral. And so that's why I'm a big believer in coaching. But when I get to see that in my clients and they prove to themselves that they can do something hard, it causes me to want to level up to the next level and say, I can do something hard. Right. So the fitness journey and this emotional journey is one and the same, because there were guys that I was traveling with in as a client, and they were telling me, gosh, I just need to get a little more control around my diet, my fitness, and I need to do something, but they would never take action on it. And then I went on vacation. We were on the beach. We had a couple of pictures. I came home and looked at those pictures, and I'm like, well, I'm helping this dude figure out that he needs to do that. And look at this dude in this picture, and that's me, and I'm not doing that. So let's get involved with how to level up in a fitness game, and enter Martin and Jason, now Chris. Um, but when that journey happened, then I'm also spotting other behaviors in other people's life, and I can see that those are holding them back from their purpose. And I'm like, and I also know that I need to level up because I'm now spotting behaviors in my life that are holding me back from my truest, authentic purpose. And so each time it's like ratcheting up and diving down at the same time. The adventure within keeps going deeper, but the ratcheting up towards purpose keeps happening higher and higher. And I feel like the launch of the book, the launch of cohort groups, the launch of webinars and seminars and speaking engagements, it's only just starting as I get closer and closer to saying, this is the thing that I was created to do, and this is the thing that I can do better than most. And I'm no longer trying to do everything for everybody all the time. I'm just trying to do the one thing that I can do that brings me the feeling of existential purpose in my life. And it also is tugging at me because everything in my nervous system has given me an identity to create safety. And if I step out here and I tell my story to Martin, or I tell my story to these guys on this podcast, I could be judged for it. I could be ostracized. My business could collapse. These are all the things that are in the back of my head. But I know every time I step closer to that, those belief bullies and dream demons try to pull me down. And it gives me greater conviction to say, I can do hard stuff and I can overcome that, so that the hard stuff that we were meant to do is the reason that it never gets done is because too many of us just medicated away, or we addicted away. We placated away because we're afraid to actually step closer and closer to it. It means we have to give up some of that identity structure that we put around us that created safety for a very long time. So people wrote books called No More Mr. Nice Guy, right? I mean, I gotta share my voice with people if
Yeah,
I'm actually going to be heard.
absolutely. So moving swiftly, because I want to kind of talk a little bit more about the book, because it's a great project. It's not just a book. You launched the book, but there is more to it, right? It's very interesting what you do, and you only briefly told me about that. So I want to kind of dive in, because I feel like so many people can actually benefit. So many guys can benefit from it. So there was the physical book that you wrote and launched, and you also have those meetings or book clubs or whatever you want to call it. So tell me what the structure is like and what do you do in those, because that sounds really interesting.
Yeah. And I say this, and I know there are a bunch of smart business guys sitting behind here listening to this, and they're going to look at this and go, okay, he designed a funnel. It's going to appear that way, but it isn't. It wasn't the intention to build a funnel. Um, but I launched my coaching practice largely because I needed income. I mean, I'd been let go from corporate America. I had, tried to find spaces, but something just felt like if I go back into that environment, it's not going to be. So I started coaching without having a niche. And most people would tell you, if you're going to get rich, you need a niche. That's the phrase in coaching, right? You can't just be another me too. But I didn't know, and I didn't know what I wanted. So I just my one of my best and dearest advisors in this coaching journey, an angel that sat beside me at a meeting one time that just started speaking truth into my life when I desperately needed to hear it. Um, she just told me, you're not going to know who you are until you've coached 100 people. So just go coach 100 people and let it evolve. And it was the best advice that's guided my business since. And that's what I did. I just started helping people find what the next problem was they wanted to solve, and then help them take action towards solving it. I didn't do anything. Um, but over time, what happened was, because of the need to earn income and the type of people that I was journeying with and the relationships that I had formed after 20 years in corporate America, they're at very high places in totem poles. Um, and so my niche became executives. And that meant my calendar was too full to serve other people in this journey. And I would get calls from fraternity brothers that I used to go to school with, or I would get calls from people who were more mid or junior in their career. I would get calls from friends that we happen to see in the community. And they're like, hey, I'm kind of stuck in my own right. And my company's not going to pay for this, but I really like to work with you. And it would be a pit in my stomach because I couldn't help them. I mean, could I? Yes, but I can't give away everything. If I want to keep the best stuff in, this is the rule about boundaries, right? And I could give them a little bit to help them go, but then it felt like I really want to get in the middle of this journey with you if you trust me. But if we're going to get into that relationship and I'm going to give up that much time, it's going to take time away from the other clients who are paying me a lot more. And then there's this wrestling in my own head. So how to best serve them was the question that I was trying to solve, because I don't have more calendar time. And at this point, I'm not adding a lot more staff to my team. I've had to add some administrative group, but I didn't have a lot more time. So my first thing was, let's write it down, but let's not write it in a how to. So that's the book. No one writes a book because they're going to make $1 million. I mean, it's an expensive business card at best, right? So I wrote the book because it is the formulation of my belief and my identity that can represent who I am and how I believe people are best designed to thrive. And from there then came a group of people that, I want to read the book. How do I get the book? And so I'm like, well, let's just put you in a group and let's journey through the book in a 3-session format at no cost. I want to know what your reaction is as the author, kind of self-gratuitous. And I'd love a review on Amazon if you want to give it to me. So I put together what I call first adventure clubs. People can come 3 sessions on a Friday afternoon. We gather about what character do you resonate? What are some of the psychological or leadership principles behind the book? And then ultimately, what do I do with it if I want to go further? The next stage is we've now formed what I call the Mojo Dojo, for people who are just wanting to get their mojo back, right? Like I used to be really good at what I did and I used to feel really alive. And right now I just feel like I'm at that bottom. I don't have the energy or the time or the drive that I used to. So in the Mojo Dojo, we're going to go for 8 sessions spread across 16 weeks. That is going to be a deeper journey where they're going to get the tools, and we're going to do a full 360 evaluation so that they get insights from the people that they are living with and journeying around. And they're going to have a better understanding of who they are so that they can build an action plan and an accountability work around how do I continue my adventure within. And that may include fitness, it may include all these other things, but it's because they now understand what is wrestling inside of them that needs to get out so that they can feel their purpose in the world. Beyond that, then I still have my one-on-one clients, and there probably be people who will come through this journey from the book club, the First Adventurers Club, to the Mojo Dojo, to a one-on-one coaching session, because it once you get on this path, you realize it has no bottom and it has no top. I can always keep learning something new about myself, and my purpose becomes clearer and clearer and clearer, and it aspires me to achieve more. And it's a gravitational pull. Once one goes down, the other goes up. And I think we have to step into that adventure if we're ever going to receive our full blessing and purpose in the world. So
Very interesting. Very interesting. So essentially, you kind of do 3 sessions to start with to really get to know people. You give them a little bit of a taste. You kind of get to know them to see what they may need, etc. And then you potentially end up working with them. That's really nice. To your point, that the progress is almost never ending. Once you start a journey like this, there is no end to it, because even in what we do, people always want the end goal to be longevity and sustainability. Well, the goals change constantly, every few months. Like in your case, first it was fat loss, it was a photo shoot, and then sort of lifestyle, muscle building, etc. And you're still in the program and you still continue. It has to become part of life. And equally in what you do in your coaching, it's the same thing, because you constantly discover yourself, right? So it seems like, yeah, like it's a never ending journey. Now, Jim,
if I could, let me just interject there.
Sure.
I also think that is one of the number one reasons why guys don't start the journey, is because they know when they're kind of looking over this chasm that there is no bottom and there is no top. And what feels safe is just standing on the flat land that they're at right now. So whether it's fitness journey, they know if I go over this cliff and I start down this path, it's going to reveal something deeper about me that I may be uncomfortable with, which is true. It will, if you let it, right? If you really have your why set, it will. It's the reason why guys pull back. I just did a LinkedIn post about the hardest thing about coaching is when people walk away. They get to that cliff and they see what is possible, and they can look up and they can see what is also possible. And they get scared that they don't have what it takes to take that journey, and they pull back. Because as a coach, I can see from the experience of myself and from the people that I work with, there is so much more out there for them than what most of us are willing to take. But it requires you to bet on yourself. It requires you to know who you are as a person so that you can step into that. And if you're still looking to your right and to your left, trying to find what your purpose and meaning is in this world based upon what everybody else on Instagram is doing, they get scared because they're like, I don't have what it takes. I can never do that. And they pull away. I'm sure in your business, for every call you probably have 5 others that say, oh, it's not the right time or it's too expensive. Same thing with me. But behind it is, it's not the right time, but there's never a right time. And it may be more than you're currently spending on yourself. But what's the cost of the addiction that you're in today? What's the cost of eating wrong? What's the cost of you working too hard? What's the medical cost that you have or even sometimes what are you buying that's numbing your inner voice anyway? So if you take out all of those things, you're like, there is a cost to every decision that we make. Sometimes the cost is going to push you towards your purpose. Other times it's going to keep you in safety.
Amen. I couldn't agree more. Commitment and yeah, like you said, the cost, sometimes it's the cost of inactivity. What is it? Where are you going to be if you don't take action? And what is the possibility where you do take action? And equally both ways, people fear failure and people fear success. And it's a real thing. People are scared of commitment because, again, to your earlier point, they are scared that they won't know who they are if they get out of that rut that they're in, and their friends, family members, etc., won't recognize them. And it's a new territory that most people are not willing to take the bet and step into. It's insane. So how, very briefly, tell me, how do you work on that with your clients? If you can answer that in, in a sentence or two.
On how do they perceive fear and safety?
How do you get somebody to from the place that they're in right now to the place where they start seeing the potential and maybe feel comfortable with who they will become or who they potentially can become?
Yeah. Non-judgment and a lot of listening is the two biggest things that I would say, because most people are judging themselves way harder than anyone else is, right? And so if I can come to a relationship with non-judgment to begin with, then that person can feel heard or seen in whatever it is that they need to see or hear or say. And so it's not my job to tell them you need to stop smoking or you need to get off of the couch, right? That's a judgment on their life. They're doing what they believe they need to do to help them find the safety that they have, and they think it's in their best interest. And for the time being, it might be. It's creating some sense of stability or safety in their life. Once they have that, then there are tools and exercises and reflections that we go through. I've told you in the past, I tend to I have a master's in physiology, so I tend to geek out over how our brains and our behavior work together. Which one influences which one at what time, and how does our belief influence our longer term biology? And when we can use some of those tools to help them understand that whatever, I mean, there isn't a human on the face of the earth that had the most ideal childhood. It doesn't matter, right? You could have had everything that you needed, a house, shelter, fed, warmth. But if someone withheld love from you, or someone didn't give you the belonging that you needed as a child, then there's some woundedness there. And I'm not going to say you're broken, but you didn't have the ideal world. And so what happened when we had that experience collectively and individually is our nervous system learned to wire itself around this thing called safety. Don't say this, don't show up that way, rub some dirt on it, man up, whatever it is. And then that belief starts taking on a biology of its own, physically altering our chemistry and how we show up in the world. When we have this kind of response and adrenaline surges through our body when we feel anxious, then what happens is we label that with an emotion and we tuck it away. But we say, I never want to feel that again. We don't often name the emotion. We just kind of tuck it away as something uncomfortable. And we go through our life kind of avoiding any sense that will cause our body to step back into that experience. But we've never named it. So now it's controlling us. We're pinballing through the world based upon what we perceive is going to cause us discomfort. Once we get through that journey and you understand your emotions, then you can calm them down by naming it. And you say, yeah, I feel anxiety. And thank you, anxiety. You served me well in the past, but you're not going to serve me in the future. And I'm going to punch it in the face and step through this one because I know what's on the other side is my purpose, right? But this is where I also allude to it in the book. We call them destination dictators when your emotions are guiding you because they're dictating where you're going to end up. Or are they actually adventure guides? Are they the things that you're using because you can name it and you can say, I feel anxiety, I feel fear, I feel shame, I feel hurt, I feel pain. Those are all good things. Your body is designed. That's a healthy functioning nervous system when you're able to notice that, because what happens is they serve as the ditches on the road. And you just, when you get a little close, you know you need to come back to center, and you get a little close to this side and you come back to center. But if you can't name it, then what's going to happen is they are controlling your destiny. If you can name it, you can tame it. And if you tame it, you can actually use them as your guides to find your purpose. And that's in a nutshell the journey that we go on in a one-on-one coaching session. That might take us a year. In a group session, I'm gonna try to do my best in 8 sessions to give them the foundation and the tools that they need to help journey through that experience. Uh, if those two things don't fit, then at least pick up a copy of the book, because it's going to show you how 3 characters, semi-fictitious, based on amalgamations of real clients, but how did they go through that journey? And maybe that's enough. Maybe you can journey on your own in that adventure to figure it out. But what I can't do is sit back any longer and just watch people numbing themselves and walking through life, reacting, and then feeling like I don't have the meaning or purpose that we need, because it's generational. What's happening with you is affecting the people around you, which is going to affect the people around you. And sometimes we don't even know the impact we're going to have on our kids or our grandkids or our great grandkids, because we're just going through life in a very reactive way. And we're thinking it's all about me and my safety. And I think the longer term picture is it's not about you at all. It's about you claiming the space in the world that you were uniquely designed to have, so that the next generation and the next generation and the next generation actually learns in a different way than what we did. So I no longer am trying to be the perfect parent. I'm just trying to be a parent who understands how to deal with pain in the midst of a broken world, and show my kids that pain doesn't have to define you. You get to define what you want to become in the experience of having pain, because it will be there.
Thank you very much, Jim. That was very interesting. So, Adventures Within, how can people where can people find your book? Where can people find you? First and foremost.
Yeah,
You got a website? What?
I'm I'm most yes, I have a website. It you're going to go there and you're going to look at it, and it's probably not the place that you're going to find me. You'll find my work. Where you'll find me most active is on LinkedIn. I tend to post on that most every day, and sometimes a couple times a day, depending. But and I have a newsletter that we publish there that's also about like aspirational things or leadership tidbits. I have a newsletter we send out. If you'd like to be on that list, please go ahead and give me your email address, jim@conjunctionleadership.com. Even if you don't want to be on that list and you just have something you want to say, I'm still old fashioned and I answer my own emails, and I'll send you a private and personal response back. So you can do that. If you're interested, um, if there are people listening to this and you want to learn a little bit more about what does this look like, or what are some of those lessons in my past that I'm willing to share, or what are some of the experiences from clients, um, I'm going to host a webinar here soon too, with this community and this community only. I'm not going to open it up to anyone else. So clients of Martin's, and that will be our kind of protected little space to get to know one another or ask questions. I'll walk through some of the maybe the more painful points in my journey and some of the lessons that I learned that we included in the book, but I also intend it to be a place where you can get answers to what is holding you back from achieving your purpose. From there, if you want to be part of the Mojo Dojo, enrollment opened yesterday. There are only 15 spots. We're keeping it relatively small as well, but if you're one of the first 15 and you're in, just let me know and I can send you the registration form and we'll get that one taken care of as well. So you can find me where you want to find me. The question that you probably need to ask is, do I want to be found? And I find that's the bigger question for most guys is we just don't want to be found. We don't want to be found out. So we tend to hide and we tend to protect and we tend to react to the world. And I think it's time that we step up and start creating in the world. So
Thank you very much, Jim. Look, I always very much enjoy our conversations. They are deep. I love listening to you, and I hope people find a lot of value in this recording. I'm sure our clients will find a lot of value in this and what we've got planned. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm very excited. Thank you very much for your time today. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and yeah, until the next one.
thanks for having me, Martin, and really appreciate. Thank you for all you've done for me in this journey, the grace and the patience as I wrestled with what's going on inside and how to manifest that in a better person on the outside. So I can't say enough about the coaching and more importantly, the relationship with you and the guys on the team. So
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's a journey, and like you said, it's a never-ending journey. We constantly learn and move forward. Thank you very much, Jim. If you enjoyed this episode and felt inspired and would like to find out more about my body transformation program, please visit my website at www.martinbugai.com or message me on Instagram at martinbugaifitness, and we can schedule a free strategy call where we can discuss your goals and find out more about how I can help you transform your body and your health.